for the first time in 2020. We are live in the Café Hangout. Welcome, everybody.
It's John Pollock and Wai Ting welcoming all of you to the year 2020.
We're
here. We made it.
About a month late, but you know we have our own calendar here in the Post Wrestling Cafe.
Yes, it is the brand new year. The Hangout officially. We've dusted it off, and here we are coming at you. And I think we'll go consecutive every week for the whole year. I think we'll make it.
You want to try?
Maybe.
We'll do our best.
What interruptions could you? Oh, okay. Well, that's absolutely not going to happen because WrestleMania we won't be able to.
You know what?
You think we can?
I think we could try. I was asking our Airbnb about our internet speed, and it should be decent. So I actually want to try that this year.
Okay. I don't think we've talked about this. It's we are set for Tampa, Florida for WrestleMania week, so we're going to be going down there. And announcements TBA, but we will be there the week of WrestleMania, including on the Thursday. So technology prevailing, we will maybe have an on-location edition of the Cafe Hangout. Maybe we can do it by that pool.
Way too soon to I suppose
mark it down.
Promises.
Thursday, April 2nd. It is the international edition of the Cafe Hangout, possibly.
Well, before we do that, let's get through this week first. How about that? Because after a week off, I don't like there's dust everywhere. It's like, you know, who knows who's been touching all this stuff.
I've missed the 2:55 p.m. waiting stress run that I just was privy to here. Had you missed that way?
Not at all. Dude.
Why won't this effing thing load?
This stuff is just like I never have a clear answer. I've been doing it for like months now, and it's like every week is something different that might be off. But nonetheless, we are up and running right now. Phone lines are open.
732-800-4423. We're going to be heavily reliant on your calls today, so you can either phone in, once again, the number 732-800-4423, or Skype in by searching for Post Wrestling. And a little later on today, we are going to have our first guest on the Hangout this year.
Yeah, Gareth Hodgson, the founder of Grapple, which many of you listening to our podcast might be familiar with. It is a rating app that people use for rating wrestling matches. He'll be on to chat about, I think, the whole process of creating Grapple itself, but in particular, the Grapple 100, which is a list compiling the top 100 matches of 2019. So looking forward to talking to him about that. But shall we just get right to the phones?
If we've got calls, let's
go
to
them. Calls. Caller, you are the first call in the Cafe Hangout of the new millennium. Who is this?
Can you guys hear me?
I can.
All right. Well, this is Tim from Ohio. Man, I'm feeling the pressure to deliver. I mean, you don't want to be the stinker caller. First, I have great news for you guys. There was a Subway right across the street from CSU where I ran into a couple of postmarks.
You're kidding. Now, are you talking about a Subway sandwich or an actual Subway?
A Subway sandwich.
Okay.
Of course.
Wow. How did this come up?
Well, the line for the main gate to enter the CSU was just massive. So I just decided, screw it. I had time, so I figured I'd wait to let the line clear out. Which, by the way, I don't know if there's been complaining about it online since, but I was there. It was the public's fault because once I did go up there, there was a woman from the building saying there's no waiting at gate B. It took me longer to walk over to the gate B than to wait in line to get inside. But there have been people that were complaining that they'd been standing in line for over an hour when there's a woman 10 feet away saying there's no waiting at this gate.
Brutal.
What is he lining up for?
To enter the building.
CSU?
Yeah, the Wolstein Center.
Okay.
Yes, this is for AEW.
Ah, gotcha.
Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't I say I was at Dynamite last night?
We breezed past that, but I know what you were talking about. But nonetheless, you ran into some fans.
Yeah, it was great. They were talking wrestling. I said something, and they just casually mentioned you. And one of the staff at the shop giggled when they were like, "Have you heard of Post Wrestling?" And I was like, "Oh my God, I love those guys."
It's the wrestling icebreaker out there.
Yeah, it really is. And you know what? That wasn't the end of it, because on my way out, I saw a Pollock Club T-shirt.
Oh my goodness!
You're kidding.
Those are in
Wow.
short supply, I think.
Those were like pulled
Yeah,
pretty
man.
quickly because of a cease and desist, actually, from
Oh yeah.
New Japan.
I mean, maybe you guys should consider doing a live show in Cleveland. I mean, it sounds like you're over.
Man, Ohio. That's maybe that's on the to-do list in 2020. We will find out. This is great empirical evidence to do so, Tim.
Thank you, Tim. What else is on your mind in wrestling?
How was the show?
Yes.
Oh, the show was a lot of fun. It seems like they are learning and evolving, because one of my complaints about the Pittsburgh show in October for Dynamite was they just had you there. You know, you're just standing around there, not utilizing the screens or anything. This time, as soon as I walked into the arena, they had the screens going with vignettes featuring the talent.
That's good. Do you find it to be a drastically different experience when you've got the content during the commercial breaks as opposed to watching it on TNT?
Well, I did not know what was what, but I would just assume, because it was amazing how long some of the talents took. Like, I don't know what you guys saw of MJF's entrance with the Butcher and the Blade.
That was picture in picture. Yeah.
He owned that crowd. I would say, as far as actual volume, he got more noise than Moxley.
Really? Wow.
Wow. Cool.
Yes. I mean, obviously, he was the heel. They love Moxley. The most over thing of the night was Chris Jericho's theme song. Like 3 different times, the crowd sang along with it. And when the song stopped, they kept singing the words.
Yeah, that definitely came across on television. That was, it seemed on TV, Jericho and Jon Moxley were among the most popular characters on the show. But as you mentioned, MJF too, getting a very strong reaction.
Now, where did Britt Baker go? Because I saw her in Pittsburgh, her hometown, where she was met with a lot of mixed reactions and apathy. But by God, a heel turn has made a world of difference, because I would say she was in the top 5 heels of the night. They hated her, especially that Baker Mayfield comment. The guy sitting next to me lost his freaking lid. He almost stepped on my foot and jumped up, was so mad.
No, I thought the promo was great. I thought Britt Baker was one of the standouts on last night's episode. I think this turn has been great for her. I really enjoyed that segment a lot. That was one of the highlights of the show for me.
You know, that makes me feel really good, because I'll just be online and see people dump on Britt Baker, and it's like, I saw her come up, because I don't live too far from Pittsburgh, and she was a regular on the Cleveland indie scene. So I've probably seen her live the most out of anybody on AEW show last night.
No, she's got, to me, a lot of potential in this heel role. But thanks so much for the call, Tim. We really appreciate all the live feedback from the show. Glad you enjoyed it.
Thank you, Tim. Phone lines are open, everybody. 1-732-800-4423. John, anything noteworthy you want to discuss, or should I kind of get into some thoughts about NXT from last night?
Why don't you get into NXT? I can explain later why I have not seen NXT.
So NXT from last night was basically I guess the
Finals of the Dusty
Finals
Classic.
of the Dusty Classic, and also the show right after the Worlds Collide pay-per-view. And
what I did see was right off the bat, which I didn't even think ahead of time of them even addressing. I was kind of glad they went to this, of Beth Phoenix reacting to what Randy did to Adam on Monday, ruining their weekend.
I really enjoyed, I think, the attention to detail. Obviously, if it was just Beth assuming her role, something would have been amiss. But I thought Beth did a pretty amicable job acting out, I think, the feelings of like a wife who was very distraught at what had happened to her husband, who, you know, was semi-retired from a major neck injury.
It's certainly something that we would have absolutely criticized if they didn't address it, because that's a glaring hole. So I'm glad they did it. But it was also something I wasn't even thinking of until I saw it, that they would even address it. So
the way she explained it was, Adam told me to go out there and do my job because it's what I'm supposed to do. And then she carried on the rest of the show as if she was assuming her other role.
Yeah.
Separate completely from her competitor self. So that was cool. I appreciate it. The first match we had was Finn Balor versus Trent Seven. And I enjoyed this match. This was, I wouldn't say too much of a back and forth. It was largely Balor in control of the whole thing and Seven selling. I really just considered it more of a showcase for Balor, which is, I think, ultimately what's important right now. It seems like a lot of the NXT UK guys, especially, I guess, because they're in town coming off of Worlds Collide, or in the country, I mean, they're starting to ingrain themselves a lot more to the NXT usual audience. However, it's still the NXT proper roster that I think still has to be showcased for these upcoming takeovers. So to me, this was a showcase for Balor, putting him over Trent Seven. I really like Balor's added aggressiveness. Could be just because he's a heel, but I think it also maybe has something to do with the fact that there's a slight style change in NXT that kind of facilitates, more of an aggressive, hard-hitting style, which he's been able to present really well. So
and it looks like they're eventually getting to Balor and Tyler Bate, which seems to be a direction that they'll get to after this Gargano program. I did see the first half hour of NXT, so I did catch this part.
So this was also, of course, building up to the Dusty Classic Finals of the Grizzled Young Vets versus the Broserweights, and so we had a bit of a backstage interaction between Pete Dunne and Matt Riddle. What did you get a look at this, and what did you think?
I liked it. I think Riddle and Dunne play off each other very well, and I think it's getting Dunne a consistent role on the show. And I think it's really showcasing the personality of Matt Riddle, who I would say since they've gone to USA, I think Matt Riddle has been, outside of that first week where it was him and Adam Cole. Was that the first head-to-head week? I think whenever. That was a phenomenal match. And to me, Matt Riddle's just been, we talk about AEW not getting the focus on everyone. I think NXT, Matt Riddle has certainly been a victim of that up until this Dusty tournament.
For sure. I thought it was a pretty brilliant move from whoever decided to put these two together. I mean, they have the odd couple thing. It's like you could put any two wrestlers together, but I think to find, the hook, find the way that you present them to the audience is really key. And whoever decided to put these two together decided to look at them and look at how completely opposite the two of them are. Two guys who probably would likely never hang out. And so they seem to emphasize those differences by having Riddle pretty much call out, mock essentially how serious Pete Dunne is all the time by sarcastically saying, "Oh, my friend Pete here, he's the life of the party. Look at him smile, cheek to cheek," and it gets a great reaction. It helps give a personality to Pete Dunne in a way, and I think it helps present to the audience like the type of person that Matt Riddle is.
And their matches have been dynamite, so it's been a really positive tournament for these two.
We have throughout the show teases of this 2 520 thing that they seem to be
for next week. Then
2 520, yeah. So
not much lead time to reveal whatever this is.
Who do you think it is?
I don't know. I don't feel like this is a show that we need to be debuting new people. Is there anyone that's been out for a while?
Could be somebody new.
Could, yeah, it very well could.
Shotzi Blackheart and Deanna Purrazzo. Both of these two looked really good, I thought.
Whoa. Do not bury the lead of
What?
Shotzi Blackheart's entrance.
Oh, she came out in the
Dude, this is like a children's toy she came out, to the point that Beth said her kids are going to want this thing.
I want one of these.
Dude, her and Chad Gable could maybe be a grouping together, because she looked like a 10-year-old coming out in this little kid's truck.
I thought it was cool.
Oh,
I liked it.
I
don't think it made her look like a kid as much as it, just made her look fun,
It looked really ridiculous to me. Like, this thing's so tiny that she's like...
That's the joke. She looks like a cartoon.
Okay.
But I think that's the appeal of like somebody like a Shotzi Blackheart. And I think right now we're seeing that she's seemingly like leapfrogging over much of the NXT women's roster that's been there before.
I mean, she got that huge spot eliminating Shayna. Then got the match with Shayna.
She got a win over Deanna Purrazzo here. And I feel like it's more so indicative of maybe how much they like her personality and the colorfulness of her character, and obviously her visual look as well. It's what?
Nothing. I wasn't saying anything.
What was that?
I was imagining, had this been the structure in place when DX went to Nitro, if they all had their personal little tanks that they were driving it. This looked like the thing Sammy
Fine.
Guevara was over the weekend.
It might not be for everybody, but I guarantee you it makes her identifiable, and I think it'll help her. It'll help her. It's like, to me, she's almost like sort of like a type of modern, cool looking baby face that might appeal more to a younger fan in the way like a Darby Allin might as well. So it seems like, she is among the crop of like the new NXT women's class that's starting to debut right now with like, Shayna perhaps moving on. You got like people like Mercedes Martinez, you have Shotzi Blackheart, and somebody like a Chelsea Green as well making their way up. And it seems like Shotzi is like kind of one of their top stars that they're picking. So
She feels like a featured performer now.
maybe let's take a break from the NXT review because we do have a phone call. Caller, thank you for waiting patiently. What's on your mind?
Not much. It's Vader from Phoenix, by the way.
Hey, what's Botter?
I'm sorry?
Sorry, what was your name again?
Varush from
This
Phoenix.
is Varush.
Varush, got it. What's up, man?
What's going on, guys?
Hey.
I only had a couple things on my mind, actually. One, I had a small little note for you guys on I think you guys were talking about it at the start of your Raw review, and it's just something very specific to me, and honestly, probably Brandon. But when you guys started talking about the drive time between, I think Alaska and Brazil,
Yeah.
was that what it was?
Yeah, the drive, the longest drive you could possibly make from North to South America. Yeah.
Yeah, just the part of me that works in logistics, it just warmed my heart, and I was like, I was right there Googling this with you guys, trying to figure out, because I'm like, this is my expertise, and now I gotta know, and it was just, I don't know, it's just hearing you guys talk about that, I'm like, the nerd in me, the logistics nerd in me really came out.
So it's actually not possible because of this thing called the Darien Gap. I've been informed.
Yeah, that's what I've learned as well.
Yeah. It's a break across the North and South American continents within Central America that is basically undrivable. So, sorry.
It's unfortunate. You'll have to take the Jericho cruise around.
Yeah. What's on your mind?
Nothing. So I'm sure you guys have seen all the rumors swirling around Brody Lee signing with AEW.
I've seen him.
So from what I'm hearing, obviously with the no compete, he can't start until around March. Do you guys think that is too long to play out? I don't know what they have in mind. I mean, obviously it's just rumors at this point, but as a possible leader of the Dark Order, or do you think that's too close to what he was doing in WWE for them to even like go that route?
I don't think it's too long if that's your destination and you have it mapped out as such. I don't know if he would necessarily be that would be the role I'd want him in as a leader of that group. You could do it. It would be fine. It's a new name.
I do wonder how many candidates they have, to slot into that Dark Order leader role. Like I've heard rumors that it might have been supposed to have been Marty at one point. It almost seems like you could fit a wide number of people, but how well would a Brody Lee do? It's hard for me to say because I feel like I haven't listened to Luke Harper cut too many promos, and that is the type of role that I think suits more somebody who talks a lot.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm just seeing what was it, the whatever last battle royal they had where they gave Billy Gunn the monster spot, throwing everyone off. I'm just having some bigger guys in there I feel like would be good instead of having a grizzled old veteran throwing around all the younger guys and the monster spot in the battle royal. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Thank you for the call, Varouche. Nice to hear from you again.
Yep. Later, guys.
See ya. Alrighty. Shall we continue?
Yeah, go back to NXT. I definitely want to hear your thoughts.
So next up, we had Keith Lee here coming out. He is the new North American champion, of course, and so was here to celebrate. But out came Damian Priest, out came Donovan Dijak, both of them essentially wanting to challenge him for the North American title. So those two go at it, and they just quickly have a match together. And Damian Priest, his thing is that he holds his mic upside down. Like, rather than, like, hold it, talking to it, like, like an ice cream cone. It's like he holds the ice cream cone upside down. So he talks to his mic like that.
It's okay.
It just looks wildly uncomfortable. Like, you got to lift your arm all the way above your head.
But you're also ready to use it as a weapon at any point.
Is that really the intent behind it? You think he brushes his teeth that way as well?
It would be a lot harder.
Does he
Your
eat
gums
that
would
way?
probably take a beating that way, but
Anyway, so everybody's just trying to come up with their own little thing, and his thing is he holds his mic
yeah.
upside down like
Maybe
that.
one day he's going to be viewed as this inspiration for this whole generation of people holding microphones differently. And it's like, no one did this before Damian Priest.
Dijak calls him a bootleg Marilyn Manson, and these two have a match, and I thought this match was awesome. It was a match, I think, between two very similar wrestlers. It was almost like two mirror images, like two tall, lanky guys who move like cruiserweights, who aren't afraid to take big risks. And these two, I thought, had a really spectacular match that went all over the place. A lot of like big, nasty bumps on the apron. Just spectacular. And I highly recommend it if you didn't get to see it. I would love to see a more substantial version of this match at a takeover at some point. And it was Dijak winning this one with the Feast Your Eyes. So I feel like NXT sort of like has a rep for having, a smaller, maybe more cruiserweight based roster, but this mid-tier crop of guys in like Dijak, Priest, and Keith Lee, even Riddle, I think is starting to challenge that. And it's this sort of like mold and stature of wrestler that I feel like Vince will probably have his eye on a little bit.
Did they give any
quicker.
kind of indication of doing Lee and Dijakovic again? Because this seemed to set up the next challenger.
Yeah, I mean, this to me, I think was almost an unofficial, number one contenders match. So I don't believe they announced officially that match.
We've got 4 matches for TakeOver so far.
Yeah.
So, I mean, typically they do 5, but we'll see what they do if this ends up on that card or not.
Tommaso Ciampa was in the back. He's like, holding a steel pipe, and then we cut to a scene of the 3 members of the Undisputed Era outside of Adam Cole laid out in the back as Tommaso Ciampa walks out with the steel pipe.
I bet it was him.
Maybe he just walked by. He just happened to have the pipe.
Maybe they had food poisoning.
So Ciampa comes out, and then Cole comes out to, because he's really angry about it. And these two just start to scuffle, and they start to brawl. And maybe Adam Cole, took a cue from Dominic Dijakovic, because he was holding his mic and was ready to bludgeon Tommaso Ciampa in the head. And Ciampa, was busted open from this microphone shot. Unintentionally, it looked like. So this was a contract signing as well. So Ciampa signed his contract, sent Cole through the table, of course, signed his contract, and then this audience starts chanting, "Use your blood, use your blood." And so the man wipes his own blood on this contract.
So we got 2 blood contracts in 2 weeks.
One intentional and probably fake blood, but this one with real blood unintentionally. So very unhygienic, especially with all this coronavirus fear going around. So I don't. Anyway, but it looked really cool.
Can I just say on a side note with like the coronavirus, which is very, very serious.
Yes.
I don't think it's like the subject of humor anymore.
Oh, you don't have to tell me.
Oh,
Yeah.
but man, if I have to see one more time, yes, I get it that this virus also happens to share a name with a brand of beer. I think everyone in the world gets it.
Yes,
We have drawn the connection. I don't need an update.
Tegan Ox versus Dakota Kai. This was the big match that they built up to, stemming off of the War Games. So Tegan comes out, and then Dakota Kai comes out with her version of the Titantron that just is completely featured with Tegan Nox's screams from that attack, which I love. And so the finish basically came as Kai was looking to cheat with the chair as Candice LeRae comes out and stops her from using the chair. And this distraction allows Tegan Nox to use the leg brace that Kai brings out on Kai behind the ref's back in order to get the win. I would say they created, a pretty heated atmosphere for this match, even though perhaps I think the feud's cooled off in recent weeks. But the match itself felt like it was heated, like a direct continuation of that attack. I didn't love the finish, and I thought it was met with a somewhat of a tepid, flatter reaction, considering, I think, the big angle that these two shot. I don't think it was the type of finish that the crowd wanted to see, in that it was a babyface getting a win by cheating, like using a weapon in a 2-on-1 advantage that, when I think about Tegan, like, if somebody attacks you like that person only, I feel like a win or loss should be less important than just delivering punishment. And so this almost made it look like she was looking for an easy way out of the match by attacking behind the ref's back and then just going for the cover and then just fleeing the scene, rather than, somebody who was looking to exact revenge in a prolonged way. So I thought it felt kind of flat. And I would assume they would continue to do some sort of no DQ match or something out of this. Didn't feel like it was over.
Knee brace.
A knee brace on
On
a
a
pole.
pole.
Okay. So then we had Chelsea Green with Robert Stone versus Kaden Carter. They were kind of putting, a lot of hype behind Chelsea Green's debut. And it was a surprise finish as Carter got the upset victory here over Chelsea Green via roll-up. And I thought this was somewhat of a interesting, risky booking here, having the less promoted person beat somebody in their heavily promoted debut.
And Chelsea got like an elimination in the Rumble too. She was the one who dumped out Dakota Kai, didn't she?
I don't remember.
Because they didn't do it with Tegan. Tegan Ox wasn't even involved with Dakota Kai in the Rumble. I think it was Chelsea Green that got the elimination on Kai.
So the booking was really interesting here, and this is looking to be as much of a push for Carter as it will be for Chelsea Green. So I expect this feud to continue as well. Before we get to the main event, let's go to the phone lines just to take some of your calls. Caller, you're on the air. What's on your mind?
Hi, John. Hi, Wai. It's Gary from London.
Hello, Gary. What's up?
Hey. Just a quick bit about NXT, about how they're booking the cruiserweights all of a sudden, or how I feel like they're not booking them. We saw Leo Rush win the title. Since he lost it, I don't think he's been seen.
Mm-hmm.
Angel Garza lost it at the Worlds Collide. He didn't get a spot this week. And also, I know it's not his WWE, but the former Trevor Lee, he was in a number one contenders four-way about a month ago and hasn't been seen since. And as far as I know, these guys aren't injured. I'm just a bit worried that the cruiserweights are sneaking back to 205 and that they've got, as you mentioned, they've got a great heavyweight division. They've got a great sort of big guy division, but I'm worried that they really could be going somewhere with the cruiserweights, but they're kind of rotating them in and out too much. And we're not getting anything from them. We got a great bit from Angel Garza for a few weeks, and I'm worried that if he disappears, that kind of momentum could go.
I think that we're probably going to see more of them even migrating over to NXT UK, because I think that is kind of the strategy of putting it on Jordan Devlin, that now that NXT UK is going to be on BT Sport, that they're going to beef it up a little bit with some of the cruiserweights going over there and having a WWE title to focus upon as kind of driving people towards NXT UK. We talk about it all the time with AEW, but it goes just as much with NXT with all of their names as well, that I don't think it's going to be uncommon that we see performers that are going to disappear for several weeks because of the limited number of spots, even in a 2-hour format. And you just outlined some of those examples. So I think for both companies on Wednesdays, that's going to be a tough balancing act of who are we pushing, because you can't push everybody.
The Jordan Devlin win, I thought, I mean, outside of the reasons you mentioned, which make all the sense of the world, to take the belt off of like Angel Garza, who's only had it for such a short amount of time and was doing so well with it, was really peculiar. And I am really curious to see how he moves on from here, because I think it would be a shame to just have him all of a sudden, be off TV for several weeks when, I mean, again, I look at, even a Raw or a SmackDown would be a great opening for somebody like him.
Could you bring him up as Selena Vega's replacement for Andrade in this short period where he's off TV?
That's what I was proposing, him versus Carrillo, of course, the two of them being relatives obviously would have great chemistry. I think it would even make sense from a storyline perspective if you're Zelina Vega, hey, you took out my guy, well, I'm going to use your own family against you. I think it'd be a great way to debut him.
Yeah, I think it would be, because I don't see her getting any time as a wrestler, so keep her as a manager and keep her in that spotlight with a new person. I think that would be great. Just one last thing, I'm planning to do WrestleMania 2021. So I'm looking very carefully at what you guys are doing at 2020 and hoping you're going to do the same when I'm there next year.
Well, we don't even know where WrestleMania is next year.
No. Well, look, we hear it's at where the rumors are LA. I'm planning. I've already got the spreadsheet going. I'm already planning and saving. So.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, we'll be announcing our Tampa plans soon, and then
I don't know what we're doing in 2021, but we will do our best.
That's
Gary.
a bit far in advance.
You'll be the first.
Thanks,
to know.
guys. Take care.
Hey, thank you for the call, Gary. Okay, yeah, and let's just finish up here with our NXT review. Where in the Dusty Classic Finals, we had the Broserweights, Matt Riddle, Pete Dunne taking on the Grizzled Young Vets, Zach Gibson and James Drake, and I thought this match was awesome. It was spectacular. I think exactly as you would expect for a Dusty Finals. I didn't even really bother taking notes for too many of the big spots, but you saw a number of
How much time did they get?
Oh, it felt like a good 15.
Yeah.
It was a main event level match. Doomsday Device, in particular, from Drake delivering it via tope to Pete Dunne on the floor. Really spectacular tag match. I was really impressed with Riddle and Dunn's chemistry, and I'm especially impressed, I think, with the Grizzled Young Vets, who, unfortunately, if you're on NXT UK, for most casual or even more than casual viewers, you're pretty much like sequestered on an island. Nobody really gets to see you. So I thought this tournament has been an excellent way to give them a bit of the spotlight, to show that, hey, over on this show that nobody's watching, you have a great tag team like this that, you know, are very much, I think, at the class of somebody like a Pete Dunne and Matt Riddle, at least as far as that tag team goes. So I would say, so by the way, the Broserweights won this one, and
they get the tag title shot in Portland.
yes they will. Before, so I was going to say, I think the entire month has been, an effort by NXT to really bolster their UK show by showcasing a lot of this talent on their TV, and that looks to continue with Jordan Devlin having an appearance next week on NXT proper. I laugh because Morrow closed the show off, and I wish you were watching this, John, because he says, the Broserweights are a team of Destiny.
Oh. Destiny.
Destiny. It was just like amazing because you had like this big moment, and the last thing you hear on the broadcast, you could tell it's like that was probably a line where the entire announce desk, probably everybody on the headset, was just cracking up the moment they faded to black and went off air. And Morrow himself, I'm sure, first to just chuckle really hard at it.
Wow. Well, what an ending.
It was a great ending to the Dusty Classic.
What was also interesting about NXT on Wednesday night is that they didn't do the usual overrun, because now Miz and Mrs. immediately follows it on the USA Network. So I guess they're believing that they just want Miz and Mrs. to start right on the hour.
And we will find out later today how that might have affected the rating.
Yeah, because that usually boosts up NXT's number by having that unopposed 5 to 10 minutes after the fact. So anyway, it's sounded like it was mainly built around the main event, and we've got a pretty solid takeover card in place now with 4 matches, and that's coming up on the 16th.
I enjoyed the show overall. It was good. I mean, I would say both this and and Dynamite. I'm trying to think, I feel like this, because of the Dusty Classic, maybe you had a bit more of a significant event to close off the show. Overall, I would say maybe not necessarily a peak for either show on Wednesday this week, but I found both of them thoroughly enjoyable. Back to the phone lines. Caller, you're on the air. What's up?
Hey, boys. Paul from New Jersey.
Hey, Paul. Nice to hear from you.
Thanks. Hey, am I the first caller of the new season from New Jersey?
I believe you are. Yeah.
All right. Got him before Brandon. But speaking of which, my question, I wanted to tell you guys, because you were talking about the coronavirus and jokes. Our state school in New Jersey is Rutgers University, and my brother-in-law works there, and my young nephew goes there occasionally for like daycare and stuff. I get this text yesterday from an old friend who knows these 2 facts, and they send this first 2 cases of coronavirus spotted at Rutgers confirmed. I jump up. I'm freaking out. I'm about to call them. I click on the article, and it's a naked guy. And the rage that I felt, I was so angry. I definitely, when John had mentioned that, I was like, I can't believe some of the stupid things people are doing. But on a wrestling note, I wanted to say, with Shayna Baszler, am I of the understanding the reason she didn't win the Rumble is because they felt it was too predictable?
I can't get into anyone's head about why the decision was made. Certainly the Shayna one was, I think that was most people's prediction going in, and they figured this was the better route to go with Charlotte Flair, even though I would disagree. I think that would have done, number one, I think it would have been the best foot forward for Shayna Baszler to catapult her onto Raw. Second, had they even kept Shayna off of Raw, I think that would have drawn a lot of interest to this week's NXT of Shayna showing up and curious about what does this mean for the NXT performer that has won the Royal Rumble for the first time. So, I mean, we'll see ultimately what this grows into with Charlotte, but I mean, I think Shayna was the one that made more sense of the two.
Yeah, the reason I bring it up is because you guys bring up predictability versus logical predictability. We've talked about that in the past. I remember saying to myself, oh, my God, Bayley's getting called up to the main roster. She's going to be the next John Cena. There's no way they can screw this up. And I definitely said the same thing about the Street Profits, and they have been some of the worst segments of Raw in recent history. So my question is, do you see Vince, based on Survivor Series match, which didn't go over very well, and I don't know, just do you see Vince souring on Shayna, or was this just, hey, we're going to change this around and get there eventually?
No, I don't see them souring on Shayna. Like, to me, you know, it was a flat main event at the Survivor Series, but look at the treatment they gave Shayna in the lead up to that. And I mean, she is still scheduled to be taking on Becky. So that's a major match at WrestleMania. So that would not infer that they have lost any faith in Shayna Baszler. I just think they're going to go in a different direction to get to that match. But we'll see long term. I mean, everyone's a question mark long term in terms of making that jump up. Some can be, you know, they're solid once they get up. Some are very unpredictable that make it up there, and others that, you, like you mentioned, that you think are slam dunks are far from it.
Yeah, just watching those Street Profits promos, I feel like those guys are so cool and so fun. It's just been, man, like I just, you know, it's definitely a concern. But anyway, yeah, thank you so much for taking my call, guys.
Thank you, Paul. We go back to the phone lines for one more call before we get to our guest caller. You're on the air, and if you don't mind just turning down the background. Oh, God.
My apologies, man. How are you?
He's back.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be back in the cafe, man.
You made it. Yep.
It's been a long month. I haven't talked to you guys in a month.
Kept your seat warm, just over there in the corner. So, welcome back.
In a nondiscreet location, right? Thank you. I appreciate it. How are?
There's that laugh.
We've missed this. We've missed this since Friday.
Oh my God.
Are you gonna make it?
Yeah, I'm good, dog.
Okay.
I'm good, dog. I was just getting over the Battle of Alberta last night, eh? Pretty rough. Yeah.
Is this with Calgary and Edmonton?
Oh yeah, Zach Cassian, man. What a tough guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Great stakes.
Anyway, John, speaking of tough guys, you think Sagato's washed after that performance against Curtis Blades, or it's heavyweight and he'll bounce back with a big victory and get back in the mix?
I wouldn't be writing off Junior Dos Santos, especially given the fact that this is at heavyweight, where I think you can get back into the mix fairly easily. But for Curtis Blades, I mean, that was an enormous win for him on Saturday. It's just he's kind of in no man's land at this point because the heavyweight division, to me, it's on pause until Stipe and Daniel Cormier fight, and it looks like that isn't happening anytime soon. So for Curtis Blades, who's got the losses to Ngannou, and you know, it's a great win over Junior Dos Santos, but what does that really mean for him? To me, it's he's going to just either have to keep busy or he's going to be on the sidelines, and he's not even the challenger in waiting when you've got Ngannou one step ahead of him.
Oh, and Ngannou's fighting that
Rosenstruck.
I forget that guy.
Yeah,
Rosenstruck. Yeah. I mean, you're not buying into Rosenstruck's hype, right? I'm not. I think he gets dusted by Ngannou. He barely. I mean, I know he got the flash knockout against. Well, not a flash knockout, but I mean, he beat over him at the last second at the buzzer. But yeah, I'm not buying into his hype. I think he gets starched by Ngannou. And one more thing, I just want to thank all the people that held me down while I was banned on Twitter. I appreciate the cards and the the letters and stuff. The support has been tremendous.
You are back.
I love you guys.
You are back.
I love
right?
you guys. I'm back. Yeah,
Okay.
You got my message, right?
I did. I guess I did. You're right. Yeah. So welcome back to the cafe and to Twitter, Brandon.
Welcome back to civilian life, Brandon.
Yeah.
Now that you're out of prison, it's great to have you back among the public.
He hung up.
Oh, did he? Well, that was very rude.
A wild exit. Always a pleasure to hear from Brandon. We're gonna get our guest on very quickly, John. But yeah.
So I want to mention like a few news updates. We got AJ Styles. He was on his Mixer account, which I guess is where you go to now to give
Mixer?
injury.
Oh, okay.
Isn't it Mixer?
Yeah.
So yeah, he just confirmed he has a separated shoulder, but he is adamant on being back in time for WrestleMania, and yeah, just seems just took that spear in a awful angle, and it was plain to see when you watch it, the way he falls and just getting out of the match like that. So hopefully he has a speedy recovery, and it looks like hopefully unless there's any complications, it shouldn't affect him for WrestleMania.
So Joe as well.
Joe's got the concussion. No update there. I mean, with a concussion, you kind of just have to wait. It's not really much you can do to speed up that process, unfortunately.
We go to our guest right now, joining us, Gareth Hodgson from the Grapple app. Are you there?
Hi,
Hey, how you doing?
I'm okay. How's things?
Things are very well, yeah. Listeners of the show, of course, know about the Grapple app. I use it myself just as a way to catalog all of my match ratings. But we wanted to have you on specifically this week, Gareth, just so that we can not only talk to you about, I think, the experiment of Grapple itself in its first year, but also the Grapple 100 that you've compiled. So, first of all, let's talk about like the project itself. Like, what made you decide to start Grapple?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was one of those things where it was in my mind for a long time. I've always been quite big on lists and data and things like that. Going back, like I always remember getting the first PWI 500 and things like that, and as a kid just poring over that and looking at all the rankings and seeing all the different names and things like that, and then kind of as I got older, really, working in a job that involves data, it sort of kind of lended itself that way. But then probably like the big prompt for me really was, I started to use this app called Untapped, which was about beer rating. And I seen, myself and, so many different people just like logging beers that they were drinking and different beers and things. And, at the same time, I'm on Twitter and I'm seeing people, complaining about Meltzer ratings and things like that. And, for a couple of years, I was just thinking to myself, why isn't there a wrestling version of this? And then I think I sort of got to, I think I was coming up to like my 40th birthday, and it's one of them big milestone kind of things. And I think I just thought, right, let's go for this. If nobody else is going to make it, why don't I try and see if I can do it? Because I was kind of feeling fairly confident that if I was thinking that way and seeing what you see on Twitter and hearing people on podcasts and things like that, I thought surely there's people out there doing the same. And, lo and behold, launched it about 14 months ago, and first year's gone great.
It seems like it's exactly kind of what you forecasted, that I think once people have experienced this app and tried it out, it's just such a great resource to see what other people are thinking about matches. I mean, match ratings are always something that draws a lot of debate amongst people, and it's always like a great debate to have. As you have seen over the past year, have you found like there's certainly you can look at an example like an Okada match that it's going to be largely a degree of how great was one of his big matches. Do you find it's better when there's a more polarizing match out there, like a Kenny Omega, John Moxley, that's going to get people arguing both sides of whether it was great or not? What's kind of any patterns you've seen among the reaction to certain styles of matches?
Yeah, I think you sort of hit the nail on the head there with the Okada type match. I think as obviously, you've referenced looking at the Grapple 100s, and, of the 144 of the matches come from New Japan. And, I think that, you do get with New Japan, especially at the top end, I think you do just get a lot of, very positive ratings, and it's, you get your odd contrarian, or you get your odd person who's a harsh rater who maybe pulls something back a bit. But, you typically see in the main that the ratings are, further at that end. I think where it comes and you see a bit more polarization, sometimes I think it's probably more like WWE product, to be honest. And I think it's, when we've seen things like, I think Pete Dunne, Joe Coffey, for example, that first one, there was real polarization there, and there was some people who absolutely loved it, absolutely hated it. I think we've seen that with, a lot of other WWE matches as well. I think they've been, when you look at the 100, they're very underrepresented, and I think it's because there's a lot of people there who maybe, I don't know, the breadth of product that they're watching isn't as wide, and then they're maybe rating things higher. Whereas you get these people who are watching everything New Japan puts out, or they're watching your Miyaharas and things like that in All Japan, and they're sort of much more discerning about the ratings that they're putting out there, and that's where you see see things polarize a touch more.
Can you reveal perhaps, where most of your audience might live, and how much influence do you think that might have on sort of the body of research that you've conducted?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I probably expected that in the first year, just obviously with me being based in the UK and, just generally kind of like a lot of social media activity from friends and friends of friends and things like that, that we'd probably end up with probably a more UK-centric audience in the first year. But as it's happened, I think the last time I checked, it was approximately sort of 70% North America, around about 15% from the UK, and then the rest just sort of dotted around the globe. So we've got little pockets in Germany, little pockets in Australia, smaller in Japan, over that way. But I think broadly speaking, it's probably a wider audience really than I would have expected in the first year, if I'm telling the truth.
So we're here to talk specifically about the GRAPPL 100, which is basically a compilation, a listing of the top 100 matches as listed by the app over the course of the year. And I think while looking at it, I was actually very surprised at perhaps how international I think a lot of the selection came. I feel like, much of maybe if you're only strictly talking to either a North American fan or maybe even just a strictly Japanese fan, we tend to be perhaps a bit more exclusive, but like looking at this list, it features just a wide number of promotions, both in the UK, of course, but also Japan and also North America. So that by the end, it does feel like a pretty comprehensive, full list of like all the wrestling that's really out there. So talking about the 100, can you reveal to us any sort of interesting stats, top performers, and other like interesting insights that you gathered from all this?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think one of the first things that stood out. I mean, I've already referenced New Japan there, but 44 of the 100 matches coming from New Japan. But the second most represented promotion was All Japan, and 13 of the 100 matches came from All Japan this year. And I think while I had a specific criteria of a minimum number of ratings to be awarded to be able to be included on the app, so you're seeing maybe fewer people are rating All Japan matches compared to New Japan or NXT or AEW or something like that. It was probably still a surprise to see that many come out, and for me, it certainly made me think, well, probably should be watching a bit more All Japan. I think a lot of those came from Kento Miyahara. 9 of those were Miyahara matches. So I know that certainly at the back end of the year, I've been digging out a lot more All Japan matches than I probably would have done previously, and been watching those. I think at the other end of the spectrum, I think it's probably from a promotion standpoint, I think the fact that WWE main roster is so underrepresented, really, given obviously the prominence of the promotion in the world. We've got, I think, the highest rated main roster match was Daniel Bryan against Kofi Kingston at WrestleMania. And that came in at number 47, so it sort of just about cracked the top half. And then the only other two that made the 100 were the Elimination Chamber match with Bryan, Styles, Kofi, etc., all the way back in February. And then at 99 was the Rollins Styles match from Money in the Bank. So, literally just 3 WWE main roster matches making the 100, which, I don't know, although maybe not that much of a surprise to me watching some of the product this year, but I think it was still, given the volume of matches that they're churning out, and obviously the status that they have, I think that was definitely a big surprise to me. I think the breadth of representation of promotions was one of the great things for me when I was putting the list together, because you said there way about being, I don't know, surprised about the how many different regions, how many different promotions were on there. And, within the 100, we had 17 represented in total. So you had matches from AAA and Rev Pro, Progress, Dragon Gate, OTT. Literally, we're representing different areas there of the world, WXW as well. So, I think certainly while I reference the background of the app, as in terms of the way I constructed it, thought about it, I like the idea of having this ratings app. But for me, there was very much thinking about, wouldn't it be great if there's kind of this single resource, and it means that you can kind of just cherry pick different matches from around the world, and everyone's so time poor these days. And I don't know, you've got the people who have maybe stopped tuning in for 3 hours to Raw every Monday night, and they maybe want to still watch a bit of wrestling and try something a bit different, and maybe something that's at the higher level. Then I think something that we're seeing there is people are using the app to check out Beyond, or check out different WXW matches, or check out something from Japan or something like that. So I really feel like we've succeeded from that point of view.
You brought up AAA there, and I was just curious what the kind of engagement you see among Lucha Libre, because I always see that as, it's so popular there, and yet I feel on a worldwide basis, I don't think necessarily the coverage always equates to, the number, like the numbers that they draw down there. And I would include ourselves as well. Like our Lucha coverage is not very extensive. I'm just curious if you kind of see that as a similar pattern or differently.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. It's both AAA and CMLL were later additions to the app. I think I added AAA around about Triple Mania time, but for Triple Mania we got close to 100 people rating that, which again for that going I think it was like live the week before on the app. For us it was good to see that many people rating things. There's definitely a drop off when it comes to lower level events. Again, I say I've added CMLL to the app this year for 2020, so it's only really been on there a month, and I've backlogged a couple of other matches. But I certainly see it as a growth area when you think that there's you literally on Twitch and YouTube and things like that. They are putting matches up there for free that you can people can go out and watch. So fingers crossed this year we'll see a lot more great matches come through those routes that people are rating, and then it'll help direct people to these different promotions, and hopefully raise awareness of different wrestlers, or just again get people watching different things, which hopefully come across really well.
Gareth mentioned how you have to have a certain number of ratings in order to be considered for the Grapple 100, and so he actually published a list called the Sleeper 25 that are basically the top 25 rated matches that don't necessarily meet that criteria. And I thought this was really interesting, talking about what we're talking about what people can potentially look out for that might be out there that is of very high quality, but unfortunately is not getting the amount of press that say like a New Japan or AEW or WWE match might be. And so maybe I'll just go through maybe your top 5 here in the Sleeper 25. At number 5, you have Jack Bonza versus Mick Moretti from PWA's The Fight for Black Metal with a 4.5 rating out of 19 ratings. Number 4, you have Momo Watanabe versus Jungle Kiona from Stardom with a 4.53 rating out of 15. And then number 3, you have Arisa Hoshiki versus Tam Nakano from Stardom as well with a 4.56 out of 24 ratings. And then number 2, from Big Japan, Yuji Okabayashi versus Takuya Nomura with a 4.58 rating out of 15. And number 1 in your Sleeper 25, from DDT's Peter Pan Show, Tetsuya Endo versus Konosuke Takashita from which is a 4.68 rating with 29 ratings. So really interesting research, I think.
Yeah, I think it was one of those where I'm always keen to again try and promote these ones which get high ratings, and they fall a bit short really from a number of ratings point of view, because again it kind of comes back to that objective of getting people's eyes on wider product that's out there. I mean, number 5 on the list there, the one that you referenced, the Jack Bonza Mick Moretti, for a lot of the year that was like number 1 on the sleeper list throughout the year, and it made me seek it out, and I subscribed to PWA to their on-demand service for a month, just to watch that match, then checked out some of their other stuff, and I've got to be honest, there's no way on earth I would have done that previously, just so again, I hope it's something that will help other people out there, find these different matches and hopefully support more promotions around the world. And it's not just the sleeper list though as well. I think when you look within the Grapple 100 itself, and again you see matches there where like obviously the Jordan Devlin David Starr match from OTT, was heavily publicized for how great that was this year. But, at the end of the day, you're still talking about a relatively, smaller Irish promotion, which, again, you'd like to think that hopefully you're helping raise the profile of that there, even right through to things that are represented on here, like your GCWs and your Beyond Wrestlings and, your Rev Pros in the UK and things like that, that maybe don't have as much eyes on them as normal. They've still got sufficient ratings here to make the list, but again, it's great to get eyes on those different matches.
So you can find this list at GRAPPLapp.com, GRAPPLapp.com. And Gareth, would you mind revealing the top 10?
No problem, mate. So in 10th place, it's the Adam Cole and Johnny Gargano match from NXT TakeOver New York in April, which was heavily rated, 703 people rating that with an average of 4.6.
Wow.
Number 9, we've got Shingo against Tetsuya Naito from the G1 Climax. That's a average rating of 4.61, so just sneaking ahead there. Kenta Miyahara against Nomura from the Summer Explosion in September, 4.63 in at 8th place. Number 7, we've got Walter against Tyler Bate from NXT TakeOver UK in Cardiff in August, 4.66, and slightly ahead of that in 6th place, another Walter match against Jordan Devlin from OTT at their Scrappermania 5 in March. So that's your 6 to 10. Again, probably no surprises there to anybody. They're all great matches that have been well received this year. And as we move into the top 5, you've got Okada versus Ospreay from G1 at number 5 with a 4.68 average. Shingo against Ishii at 4 from the G1 Climax with a 4.69 average, which, that's the highest rated G1 match overall, which was a bit of a surprise. I know it was my personal favourite from that tournament, but again, something that sat right up there in the Grapple list. And as we moved into the top 3, we had one which went all the way back to January. So from Wrestle Kingdom 13, it was the Omega Tanahashi match, which, given the fact that 920 people had rated this, it comes out with an average of 4.72, which to me is just ridiculous that nearly 1,000 people up until the cutoff point had rated that, and it ranks so high is amazing. But in the end, it was a big scrap for top place by 2 matches, really.
Now, is it tougher for a match to retain its spot over the course of a year because I guess more people will be rating it?
I think typically what you find is after you go over a certain number of ratings, it does level out to some degree. So, by the time, say, for example, that Omega Tanahashi match, I think on the day, or maybe not necessarily on the day, on the weekend, it was up there in terms of having 600, 700 ratings. It was at that mark. I think for the remaining 300, 400 that came in towards the end of the year, once you've got that number of ratings, people are kind of your average is generally worked out there. And, from a statistical significance point of view, to put my day job head on, it's very much, there's enough ratings gone in there that things tend to remain parity. It's very rare that you get something that gets to a certain level and then, it tanks as the year moves on. I think typically what you find after a couple of hundred ratings are in, give or take, 0.3 or 0.4%. It's remaining pretty static, which for me is great because it means you kind of, I don't know, the data that you've got is very robust, and it means that it's as accurate as it can be really with the number of people that we're talking to.
When you launched the app and kind of taking a lot of this very interesting data and finding and it's a pleasing way to present this information. Like, you guys are very good when it comes to putting out these charts. They're very easy to digest the information as opposed to, just putting all of this into a spreadsheet somewhere for people to see. Was that something that you guys were cognizant of at the beginning of, taking this data and also presenting it in a professional looking way as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think from, just, again, I sort of referenced it there really, but from a day job, a career point of view, I work in, market research and insight industry. So in essence, my day job is taking data and taking information and trying to, pass that on, relay that on to people in the most sort of easily to communicate way and a straightforward way, really. So, I knew that sitting on the data that I've got, I know that there's people out there who, love to pore over that and see lists and see ratings as well. And for me, it was very much, I need to make this as visual as possible, as clear as possible. Obviously, the attention span on Twitter is incredibly short, and, it's kind of try to make something that's going to grab someone's attention and stand out really as they're scrolling down their feed. And hopefully makes things a bit more consumable. Nice to see you say that I've appeared to have achieved that anyway. So that's a positive.
It's very clean. It's a very clean looking app and website. And so, without further ado, the top 2 of 2019.
Yeah.
Oh, the drum roll.
Yes. I haven't got any sound effects, unfortunately. But in second place, it ended up as I think maybe the YouTube release hurt it a little bit, really, because OTT put it out there for free on YouTube, and that's when this one did fall away slightly. But it's Jordan Devlin against David Starr from the 5th anniversary show, which has a 4.81 average rating from 275 people. So absolutely phenomenal rating. Based on an average of that many people, it's a near perfect match, and it almost feels criminal, really, for it to come in second place. But number 1, it's the Shingo Ospreay match from the Best of the Super Juniors final, which has 4.87 average from 630 ratings. So again, huge number of people rating it, near perfect average, across all those different people. And it's one of them. Who can argue when that many people have rated it, and who can argue given how spectacular a match it was.
Absolutely.
Yeah, all worthy contenders that you can certainly debate, which I'm sure you love when it's that kind of debate that, of a year like 2019, when it comes to the in-ring level that just continues to raise the bar each year. I mean, this is where we're seeing. I mean, there was a point where I'm sure in many years, like a Daniel Bryan, Kofi Kingston might have been someone's top 5 match. Like that just shows you the depth that we're getting, that's trying to crack the top 50 now of where the level has increased in the last 15 to 20 years.
Exactly. And, I think when I broke the list down and I looked at it, the top 30 matches had an average rating of 4.5 or above. And, if you think you're getting into half stars or half ratings kind of thing for 30 matches, in reality, to be, a pinch of salt between them, really, in terms of how good they are, and been ranked 4.5 or above. It's absolutely, amazing. And, even the number 100 match had an average of 4.21, so again, still really high there. So it just sort of shows the caliber of matches that are out there, that pretty much you can look across, nearly 20 promotions there. Everyone's got a 4-star match, everyone's pulling out multiple 4-star matches, so it just shows how spoiled we are, really, in this day and age.
As far as standout performers in the Grapple 100, you also published a list of the MVPs, and I think, to the surprise of not too many people, Will Ospreay is featured 16 times in the Grapple 100 out of a possible 34 matches. So I think he kind of runs away as far as volume with it. But talk about maybe some of the other names that really stood out to you as on that list.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, Ospreay was the obvious standout candidate. There was 16 of them were singles matches. He had another 3 tag matches as well, really included there. So he was represented 19 times, which, if you think 1 in 5 matches on the list were Will Ospreay matches, it's pretty incredible. But I think there was definitely some different performers beneath that were really strongly represented for different reasons. So I mentioned Kento Miyahara before. He had 9 matches that made the list, which, given obviously, I think the variation in opponents he had and things like that in All Japan, and essentially leading the company at the top end. I think for him to appear that many times was absolutely phenomenal. And I think it really just emphasizes the fact that there are people there outside of New Japan and outside your top indies, outside NXT, that up there with anybody in the world, and people should be paying more attention to. I think at the end of the day, I think another one that I highlighted today. I put an article up on GrappleApp.com today about David Starr, and I think whereas when you look down the contenders in the list, you get people like Ospreay obviously on his 19, Miyahara on 9. You've got people like Ibushi on 9, Okada on 8, Ishii on 7. But these are all people who are doing it contained within one promotion. And when you look at David Starr, he appears 9 times on the list, and that's spread across 6 promotions. So I think he's represented 3 times in OTT. He had a match at Progress. He had a match at Red Pro, a match from WXW. I think it was 2 from Beyond, and
did we just? Oh,
we may have gone into the Beyond.
Oh, unfortunately, we might have been disconnected from Gareth there. So, nonetheless, I think our time was coming due anyway. So we will have to maybe say goodbye to Gareth off air. But GrappleApp.com is where you can find the Grapple 100. Is at Grapple App is where you can follow Gareth and all his work, and of course you can download Grapple GRAPPL on the App Store, everywhere you get your podcast.
It's a very cool resource to have, just to look at different match ratings. And, of course, the Grapple app, the Grapple Spotlight podcast, I would also like to mention. It's a great listen with JP, Joe, and Benno. Sorry, my phone is off, so I'm waiting for it to
No
reset.
problem.
I was scolded earlier about having my phone on. So.
Thank you so much, Gareth, for jumping on the show. And we await the ratings from the Wednesday Night Wars.
Yeah, do you have any sense of what show was going to have the larger interest?
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that the trend would continue with AEW. I mean, it's funny because over the past month that we've been away, we've really kind of the landscape's changed a little bit, hasn't it?
I think we're still. I mean, to me, it's like AEW has a pretty commanding lead right now on Wednesday nights. I think it is the greater amount that is their show to tune into. And I wouldn't say either show going into this week had a ton of buzz attached to it. I think if you had teased something coming off the Rumble for NXT, maybe you would have seen a hint of that. But, there wasn't, beyond the Dusty Classic, I don't know what was necessarily driving people to NXT specifically this week. But we'll find out momentarily and see what the numbers can tell us this week. And then everyone online can go to war for the next 3 days and debate these numbers.
Of course.
It is something to behold.
Okay, we go back to the phone lines, and I'm very happy to talk to this guy again. Our man Neil, you're on the air. What's up?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Doing very well. What's going on?
Yeah, it was great to hear from Gareth. I really enjoy the Grapple app. It's as you alluded to, Way, it's really well designed. It's very clean, lovely to use. But the most important thing about it is the user base is so great.
Mm-hmm. In a short amount of time too. I mean, all that, like some of these matches getting rated like 1,000 times it seems. So yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I rely on it. I don't rate very much, but I rely on the excellent discerning, including you, of course, Way, user base, because you do get a window into some of the promotions that I don't generally follow. For instance, it's good for broadening your horizons a bit. I'm pretty much up on New Japan, but Big Japan, All Japan, Noah, DDT are all a bit of a mystery to me, apart from what WH will recommend on Twitter, which I'll dip into, but and his recommendations are always great, of course. But it's really good for that, I think, for just opening a bit of a window. For example, I saw, and I think you probably saw him, John. You can confirm or deny this. Francesco Akira.
Yep. He was on the All Japan show, and he's got the junior heavyweight title match coming up.
Yes, and sickeningly, he's only just turned 20.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he's a real star in the making. And on a side note, I've recently started listening to the Grapple Spotlight podcast because WH and Jamesy have been recommending it a lot, and of course Benno is on it, so he and JP and Rev Joe do a great job. But I'm still a postmark through and through, of course.
You can listen to more than one show. We
Thanks,
wouldn't get mad. Yeah.
Just quickly, I want to say that one of my favorite things in all of the post wrestling podcasts is on Ask Away, when there's a question that takes Way a minute or maybe 2 minutes to read out, and the answer is like no. Or I haven't seen it. I'm thinking, I'm thinking about and I've been on the other end of this, so I'm not making fun of any of the questioners, but I'm thinking of the Aqua Comeback album question this week, which went into massive detail about those filthy lyrics and everything, and John was just, well, I've never heard it.
There's not much more to say beyond I haven't seen it. It's like me telling you for 5 minutes about this book. I said, what are your thoughts, Neil?
Well,
I haven't read it. I don't have any thoughts on it.
Well, this is it. Because and it's funny that you should mention a book. I once asked a question on Ask Away about the Scott Pilgrim comic books, and I went into enormous detail in the question about how you felt as Torontonians about the fact that Sneaky D's and Honest Ed's and Casa Loma and all these places were depicted in the book, and neither of you had read it. So
no, I wish I had more to say about it, unfortunately. But
in fairness, you had both seen the film, which you can make similar points about, and I think it wound up being a promo code, which is for your Black Friday sale or something. So that was cool. But and yet, of course, you get a question, what's your favorite pizza? And you go into a 5-10 minute fascinating discussion about the death of the retail sector and the changing character of Toronto, so it's wonderful. But as usual, I'm sorry, I'm gone way off the point. My main question was going to be, and you talked about this yesterday, that I thought Drake Wirtz did a absolutely terrific job at Worlds Collide.
Yep.
The main event, dealing with the Alexander Wolf situation. And also, much less important than Wolf's well-being, but he also handled it kind of without breaking kayfabe, in as much as he sent the teams back to their corners. He handled an obviously shock-looking Bobby Fish really well. He did it terrifically well, and I just hope there's a new directive in place after the Kyrie situation that is an example of. My worry is we haven't seen this yet handled in a singles match, where the match would simply have to be waved off. Do you think they have it in them to just wave off a contest when a wrestler has a suspected concussion?
That's a good point. The instances we've seen, at least lately within WWE, have all taken place within tags. And so, I mean, I do think back to like that time when Balor and Samoa Joe had their match, and Samoa Joe drew blood. It was Balor, right? Am I mistaken?
Yeah, this was the Balor Joe match.
And they stopped the match to check on the cut. And, it was incredibly awkward, I suppose, to watch.
They stopped it several times.
So I would hope that if in a similar instance, if a performer was deemed to be concussed or just for whatever reason unfit to perform, that at this point they would recognize that and would just call the match off, ring the bell. It's a no contest, or the other guy wins, and you move on. You write your further storylines after that. It's never the end of the world. It's pro wrestling. You can, whatever happens in real life, you can adjust your storylines to fit that narrative.
And the audience more so than ever understands that. So when something happens and it's, trying to maintain the integrity of the match, like, that's all fine. But to me, it's not a priority for me in that situation. It's the guy's health. Like, if a match, it's one match at the end of the day. Like, even in the case of Saturday, yes, it's your main event. If it was such a serious injury that the action had to be halted, you have a very understanding audience that I think the vast majority of, you can give them enough credit that they will understand a serious situation, and it trumps any match to me. So I think sometimes when you're in the moment, this is your profession, this match is a big deal to you. In that moment, it is considered just, we can't possibly stop this match. But once you can have some time removed from that and look at the bigger picture, I think most performers would understand that fact.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Thanks very much, guys, for taking my call.
Thank you, Neil. As always, pleasure to hear from you.
All right, we have our numbers in. So from Wednesday night, AEW did 828,000 viewers. They did a 0.34 in the 18 to 49 demographic, which was third out of all cable programming, which is a very high ranking for them. And that topped NXT, which did a 712,000 with a 0.22 in the main demographic. So that is listed 37th here for the night with other programming. So, another lead for AEW here. I'm just looking and contrasting here some of the the demo numbers here. AEW did a 0.29 among people over 50. NXT still had a commanding lead there with a 0.36. So that is notable. And then among people 25 to 54, we had a 0.36 to a 0.26. Anyway, the overall number, not another one.
So AEW down slightly from last week.
Yeah, last week's numbers we had AEW
871.
at 871 and NXT at 769. So both down slightly this week.
Okay. Too early to maybe draw any conclusions? Like, what would you say for either show for any of these?
I mean, I see this kind of on par with what these shows were going to do this week. I think for for AEW now, for their bigger shows, that's when you're looking at 920 to 950 as kind of the range they're at. I would expect this kind of a number probably for next week as well, in this range as well. I mean, next week's show has been built up. Really, it's around Cody getting the lashes. Like, that's the main event of the show next week.
That January 1st bump that AEW had, while we've been away, we haven't really had a chance to discuss this too much, but in January when it did 967,000 and then slowly trailing down from that down to perhaps, more regular numbers that it's experiencing right now. What do you make of that? Was it just the promotion of like that particular show?
I think that it was a big help, the fact that NXT decided to run on Christmas Day. AEW didn't, and you would think that would have potentially provided some momentum for NXT, but the following week, to me, it just built up AEW that much further the following week. I think people saw January 1st as a big show from AEW, and NXT was not putting out a live show that week. And I think given, the proximity that it's a holiday, more people than most were willing to watch it. And I would say that the following week was a direct result of people tuning in the week prior, liking what they saw, and they came back the following week. So, the first 3 weeks of January, they topped 940,000 viewers. Last week was down to 871. That was the tape show, which I took that as a good number, knowing that it's a taped show.
And I think seeing the rating this week, taped or not, has zero effect.
It meant nothing. It meant nothing that it was taped last week in comparison to this week, drawing a lower number. But overall, I mean,
still number 3
in the main demo. Like that's a big win for them. I don't know if they've ever finished third before. I'd have to go and look back at that. They were up against an NBA game that they actually beat out in the key demo. The game that was going against them was Detroit and Brooklyn. It did 876,000 viewers, so more in total viewers, but AEW edged them out in the 18 to 49 demo.
Right.
And then number 1 for the night was the Houston-Portland game that started after Dynamite and NXT had ended, so that wasn't competition.
Any maybe conclusions as to whether or not the overrun might have affected the rating for NXT this week?
I think it had to have. Like, that always would prop them up a little bit. Not to the extent that it would have been competitive with AEW, but I'm sure that hindered them a little bit, to the point that it's almost, I don't know if it would have made the difference between what they last week. They did 769. I don't think the overrun was going to push them to that high, but I'm certain the overrun affected them somewhat.
Right.
So having that gone, it was an edge that artificially enhanced NXT's number every week, having those 5 to 10 minutes.
That was more of a Roth angle, wasn't it?
Oh, I guess so. Yes.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's it was destiny for you to make that joke. So anyway, we'll have a further detailed ratings report coming out later on this evening, providing I'm still alive. I woke up today, did the show with Wai on Wednesday night, and I went to sleep around 1:15 or so. And then I woke up today, and my head was just killing me. And I got up, and I was just feeling awful. And it just turned into a full-out migraine. And this morning was a complete write-off for me. I was just dead. And then was able to do the show today, but I was anyway.
Thank you for being a trooper, John, and getting through the show with us. And thank you.
I'm feeling a bit out of it, but nonetheless, it was great to chat with you, Wai.
It's good to chat with you. It was good to chat to all the callers and everybody in the chat room. Hello, Jonathan Pine. John Pine, thank you for the Christmas card. Hello, Chris Elliott. Hello, Brandon D. Edward Sierra. Bruavin Khan. all you guys, thank you for being a part of the chat room. Thank you for calling in, and thank you for listening. If you are listening to this after the fact, we are live every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, exclusively for patrons, and then free for everybody after the fact. So tune into the Café Hangout. Again, there's not going to be any music this week because my phone is dead. And so we're. You got any good music on your phone, John? You want to go out to?
Not that isn't copyright free, so okay. I don't know if that's the best idea.
Maybe no music this week, unfortunately.
I could play something for you.
Unless you want to hum something.
Maybe we can do that. For patrons, just want to make give you a reminder. Friday night, Wai and I are back with Rewind to SmackDown. Sunday night, we have a bonus show going through the New Japan cards from Sapporo. We'll be going through the highlights of both shows. And next Thursday on the Café Hangout, WWE Investors Call. So that means Brendan Howard has been summoned to join us here on the Café Hangout. So that is it. For Wai Ting, I'm John Pollock, and Wai will take us out.
Buddha, 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 dun, dun.